I'm telling you, it's everywhere. I remember we were traveling to minister, and I was going with my family. And before the flight, the Lord gave me a harsh instruction. And he said, in the plane, there would be a stewardess, and she is a witch. This was when we just had my first daughter.
Welcome to Kingdom Hub, where we bring to you transformative and powerful messages from Apostle Stephanie Ike Okafor. We promise that as you watch, your life will be transformed. Please kindly like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
A lot of the people you admire are people that have meetings with demons. I'm not saying this like I'm guessing. I'm saying this like I know my name. Meetings, like where demons would manifest in physical form. And they would have meetings with demons, meetings with principalities about what they should do in the land. While you admire them, they're conniving to destroy destinies. Everything is spiritual. Even as I was praying, for this conference, the Lord began to show me how there are even people in this place that when he's telling you to go into psychology, I just needed to share this even before we get into the message. He's calling you into psychology and you've been fighting it because you're looking at it from a carnal perspective, not realizing that witches are already deployed into psychology so that they can create language for bondage. So when God is calling his own people to say, no, enter this field, go into that field, you are resisting the will of God because you're too carnal. You're thinking it's still about you. God, I don't want to go back to school. Not recognizing this is about him commissioning you. Having a sent mentality. I'm telling you, it's everywhere. I remember we were traveling to minister, and I was going with my family. And before the flight, the Lord gave me a harsh instruction. And he said, in the plane, there would be a stewardess, and she is a witch. This was when we just had my first daughter. And that she should do not give her permission to touch your child. They're trying to find a loophole. And the only loophole would be on the flight. Because you would be tired. Because it's a normal thing, right? You might be on a flight and a very kind stewardess is like, I just love kids. They tell you that, oh my gosh, she reminds me of my grandchild. And the moment you hear grandma, you're like, oh, everybody's grandma. Witch. And it was a clear instruction. He said she would ask you for permission because what she's looking for is legal rights. So I shared with my husband, I said, there is a lady we must be aware of on the plane. And how we would recognize her is that she would ask for permission. I've been on flights where literally a stewardess would just come and try to carry the baby. Like, girl, please let me just carry this child for you, And we'll laugh about it. But then my husband would give them an eye. They'd be like, sorry, sir. But literally we were on a flight and we were exhausted. Both falling asleep. And a lady comes, the stewardess. Very kind looking woman, grandma, sharing all her stories about her grandkids. Until she says, she's like, will you give me permission to carry your daughter? She's like, I see you guys are tired. I could rock her. She's just like one of my grandchildren. That's when everything in me woke up. I said, this is natural coffee. I said, oh no, thank you, we're fine. She asked it 3 times. No, it's okay, is it okay? Can I just have permission? And then the 3rd time, and then my husband really woke up. And I was like, this is the lady. You would not recognize them. For many of us, the issue is that we have this idea in mind. What it means to encounter a witch. What it means to encounter a warlock. No, they look like everyday people. Doing everyday things. They're starting businesses, they're going to school, they're teachers, they're educators, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're everywhere. So when the Lord is telling you to go into a field, don't go in there just thinking it's about personal benefit. Release your tongue. There are spaces you go to, you need to know how to intercede. You should be the first one at the office because of your intercession. Because there are things that you must loosen in the ground. When we were looking for a school for my daughter, we were going to different schools, and we're very involved in everything they're doing. And we will ask them about what is the curriculum? What are you teaching the children? There were schools that were teaching children witchcraft. And I'm like, why are you teaching them this? They said, oh, it's cultural day. I said, and where? I was so happy that we were looking for schools around Halloween to see the things that were going on. And there was a particular school that struck me. Because when we went to the class that would have been her class, they literally had on the wall tombstones with the pictures of children in the class. And it said R.I.P. And the director of the school said, you see, nothing scary. I said, nothing scary? That you're prophesying death over children. Now, in years to come, when random things begin to happen, people don't know how to trace it. So my husband and I, we began to intercede for those children. That in the ignorance of what because their parents gave consent for their pictures to be used. I would have been so busy, the parents didn't really understand what they were giving consent for. And then they took us to a room. They said, well, we do have a teacher that is Christian. Would you like to see her class? We said, yes. We went there, only pumpkins and leaves. There was nothing that would make you understand this Halloween. That was someone who understood territory. That in her class, there's no such thing as Halloween. The whole school is celebrating and having different practices, but for the Christian teacher, her class was different. This is what it means. But what the Lord began to speak to me about that I need to teach on the first day of my session rather, is that before you really know what it means to have authority to take territory outside of you, you have to understand what it means to take territory over you. Because at the end of the day, what is more critical? Because if God is going to partner with you to advance his kingdom, what happens when you become the stumbling block? So it is more essential for you to understand how to overcome you. To overcome the flesh. That it would not stand in the way of the work of the Lord. Because you see, the devil is very patient. He is waiting to use your weaknesses to gather a harvest unto himself. He would allow you to do whatever exploits you want to do. Because he knows the strings he can pull if you have not overcome it. What does it look like to first overcome the flesh so that we may be effective for the master's use? When I began to minister in Los Angeles, 10, almost 11 years now, one of the first things I encountered was the principality over the land. And I began to see what he had against people. It was the craziest encounter because I saw ministers in the land with snakes wrapped around their mouth. And I said, Lord, what does this mean? How could there be ministers who have snakes wrapped around their mouth? And these were just some ministers that were highlighted to me. And the Lord said, because the enemy has their vocal cords. He has control over their tongue. I said, how can the enemy have control over their tongue? Because he has presented something else to them. They care more about reputation than the will of the Lord. They care more about followers than the will of the Lord. And here is the thing, wherever you're called, the same thing that tested people in the land will test you. So it's not just, that's why you must be very careful how you speak about people. Because when you're put in their position, you will experience the same test. And so when the Lord began to show me this, and he said, but if you commit to always say what I tell you to say, then he will not have anything in you concerning this land. And that was a commitment I had to make with the Lord, that no matter what it will cost me, I would say what the Lord tells me to say. And those same things presented itself to me. There were offers that I'm not yet allowed to speak on. There were things that came to me. There were people I grew up that I loved, and those were the ones the enemy would use to bring offers. That, oh, we heard about this. How did you hear about it? How could you hear about something not spoken? Whenever the Lord releases me, I'll share more on that. But there were things that I had to face the temptation of and say no. Now, if the Lord has not taken me through process, if there were things that the Lord did not kill in me, those things would rise up and destroy the very thing the Lord wanted to do before it started. You see, there are some people in this room and you're going through process. Do not curse your process. Do not try to fast your way out of process. Do not try to intercede your way out of process, because it is the thing that will preserve you. It will give you longevity for what is ahead. You may be frustrated. You may feel like, God, why do we keep going around the same mountain over and over again? But rather than being frustrated, begin to ask the Lord, where am I really in you? Am I the Israelite that could actually take the short journey? Or do I need a 40-year period in the wilderness because of what's in me? Don't be so quick to think you know yourself. There are things that you must allow the Lord to show you. What is it that I love that must die? What is it that you know about me that would be a hindrance to what is ahead of me, that the Lord is trying to kill in you now? Sometimes not getting the job was God's mercy. Then how would you live when you don't have the things you want? How do you show up in life? Because until you get to the place where you are content, whether you have abundance or lack, there are some doors God cannot open for you. Because that means you would always be defined by abundance, and Satan would know that is a temptation to use to get you off course. That when you're on the path of destiny, an opportunity that's really a prison would be presented to you. And you will be praising God on your way to a prison. So there are some things that God must kill in you. Galatians 5:17 says, for the flesh desires what is contrary to the spirit, and the spirit what is contrary